Good afternoon, everyone. So, for anyone who's slightly confused, this is a meeting about third year field courses for SBCS. So, if anyone's wandered in thinking this is a drama lecture or something, then you're in the wrong place. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rob Nell, and I'm the module organiser for the South Africa field course. Dave Hone, who I'm sure you all know, is, as I'm sure you all know, currently stuck in Toronto for personal reasons, but he's going to Skype in once I've done my little spiel. We'll get Dave Skyping in, and he's going to tell you about the Canada field course. We also have some people here who might be able to answer any questions that you have about the field course from the perspective of someone who's not trying to organise it. So we've got Ewan, Holly, Judy and Anastasia, who all went on the South Africa field course last year, and Holly and Ewan went on the Canada field course as well. So you can get some input from the students' perspective. You know, it's okay as long as you don't talk to Rob, that sort of thing. And we also have Sally Faulkner, who has demonstrated on the field course many times, and is currently videoing this so that we can show people who aren't here what was said. So what we're going to do is I'll start by just giving you a quick briefing on the South Africa field course. We'll then Skype through to Dave, and he can tell you about the Canada one, and we can then have questions at the end, and you can ask either Dave or me or any of these other good people if you have any questions about how it works. So let's kick off with the South Africa field course, which this year is changing its name from Tropical Ecology and Conservation to Savanna Ecology and Conservation. It was originally called Tropical Ecology and Conservation, and we ran the field course in Borneo. We switched it to South Africa about 5 years ago, and we didn't change the name. The field site we go to is about 70 kilometres south of the Tropic of Capricorn, so it's slightly subtropical. So we thought we'd change the name to Savanna Ecology and Conservation, which is probably a bit more appropriate. Let's kick off by telling you where we go, and then we'll talk about what we do and some of the logistics. So this is the bottom end of Africa, in case anyone doesn't know what Africa looks like. This is South Africa here, as you can all work out, and Cape Town is down here. We don't go to Cape Town because people from Cape Town are very annoying, but we go up here in the north of South Africa. So just to give you your bearings, that's Joburg there, Swaziland, Durban's there, and then we've got Mozambique, Zim, Botswana around there. So that's the overall view of where we're going, and then we can zoom in a bit more. You can see this is the big conurbation around Joburg and Pretoria. We are at a field station called Wits Rural Facility, and you can see this green part here. This is the Kruger National Park. The Kruger National Park is the size of Wales. I'm sure you're all aware that the size of Wales is one standard unit of area in many fields, including conservation. I'm pleased to say the Kruger Park is itself the size of Wales. The Kruger National Park is arguably the greatest game park in the world. It's certainly in the top three. The field station we stay at is slightly outside the Kruger National Park, but in fact all of this area here is effectively wildlife, managed for wildlife rather than farmed. South of the road is farmed, but north of the road and all of this area is managed for wildlife. So that's Johannesburg, which is where you'll be flying to most likely. To give you some scale, that is about a 5.5 to 6 hour drive. South Africa is big. Yeah. So that's where we're going. It's called Wits Rural Facility because it's owned by the University of the Witwatersrand, which is the big university in Joburg. the University of the Witwatersrand is usually just called Wits University, so it's Wits Rural Facility, and that W is pronounced with a V. So, how do we get there, and how much does it cost? The field course this year is scheduled for the 8th to the 20th of September. So if you're leaving from London and then coming back to London, you'll be leaving on the 7th, almost certainly flying overnight to Joburg, and then leaving Joburg on the 20th and arriving back in London on the 21st. The way we work it is you are responsible for getting yourself to Johannesburg, or more specifically to Oliver Tambo Airport just outside Johannesburg. You can get there by whatever means you choose, but you have to be there by midday on the 8th of September. We will then meet you at the airport and we'll travel to Wits Rural Facility by coach. And then the remainder of the field course happens after that. The cost of the field course is £150. That covers everything while we're in the field. You could come with no money at all and you'd be okay, except you might want to buy a pizza in the Kruger National Park. But you have to make your own way to Joburg. Flights to Joburg are dirt cheap at the moment. You can get a return via Dubai or Istanbul for about £450 to £500 at the moment, which is stupid cheap. So if you get one of those flights, the overall cost to you will be in the region of £650. Not last year, two years ago, there was a big group of students delayed at Heathrow, and they arrived a little bit over a day late, and they managed to claim compensation off the airline for the delay, which actually meant they made a profit on the entire field course. So if you're really lucky, you can actually come out of it in the black rather than the red. I've got a note about it later on, but I'll say it now. We also have some bursaries for students from less well-off backgrounds who want to attend the field course. These are bursaries that are funded by SBCS, so these are internal bursaries. For this field course and for the Canada field course, we have two what we call full bursaries, and that pays transport and the cost of the field course. And then we have two half bursaries where we pay half of a flight and half the cost of the field course. So you fly out, you get food for half the time there, and then it's game over. And you have to make your own way back. That's clearly meant to be a joke. And those are open to people who are on college bursaries. So if you're on a college bursary, you can apply for those. And those are available for both of the field courses. Let's talk a bit about Wits Rural Facility. As I've said, it's run by the University of the Witwatersrand. It's 350 hectares of unspoiled, low-felt savanna with an abundance of birds and wildlife, blah, blah, blah. It's close to a highly populated rural area. I'll explain that to you in just a minute. But it's also very close to the Kruger National Park. Just to look at the map in a bit more detail, so this is zooming in a bit more. As I said, essentially all of this area here is effectively savanna, is managed for wildlife. This area here is not. Those of you who know a bit of history or a bit of South African history might know about the Apartheid Homelands. Anyone know what those are? Yeah, no one's got a clue. So during the Apartheid years, which to all of you probably seems like ancient history, and to me seems like yesterday, during the Apartheid years, one of the more unpleasant things the Apartheid government did was they set up what were called Bantu homelands in South Africa, which were meant to be semi-autonomous states within South Africa that were run by the black population of South Africa. And the idea was that, so the kind of bullshit justification for apartheid was that black society should develop separately from white society, and that was one of the justifications that was used. And they set up these homelands, which were, as I say, were these semi-autonomous states within South Africa. You may be surprised to hear that none of these homelands included, for example, any of the gold mines, and they were mostly on very marginal land. Anyway, the road that runs along there was the border of one of these apartheid homelands, and you'll see in the next slide. In fact, let's look at the next slide. So this is a satellite photo of the area, and you can see the borders of the old apartheid homeland. So there's a town here called Acorn Hook. There's another town just down here called Bushbuck Ridge. All of this area here is basically either common or grazing land or subsistence farming. And then on the other side of the border of the old apartheid homeland, you've got these areas that are managed for wildlife and for ecotourism. So you can see the stamp of history on the sort of geography of the area there now. Zooming in a little bit more, this is that road. This is where we stay. So this is part of Wits rural facility called Caravilla, and there's a bunch of dormitories and a kind of open area, and there's some smaller houses on the other side. That blue dot is the swimming pool, which is quite nice. And this fence line here, this is the only fence between us and the Kruger National Park. Okay, and on the field station there are 3 giraffes, zebras, wildebeest, impala, waterbuck, kudu, leopards, which we sometimes see, 7 species of lethally venomous snake. Last year, when we were there was a pack of wild dogs on the field station. We didn't see them, but we got them on a camera trap. So what they do is they come under the fence, and then they're in this 350 hectares with a big gate fence all around it, and there's a load of impala, and they can just pin the impala up against the fence, and it's basically like a big buffet for the wild dogs. And 2 years ago, there was a female cheetah with 5 cubs who came through the fence about here and was hanging around up here. I was the only one who saw her, I'm afraid, because we stopped everyone going there because she got very young cubs with her. So she basically gone to this corner here in order to get away from everything else, and then she was coming under the fence and sort of moving backwards and forwards under the fence, but we didn't want to disturb her. But anyway, so that's the only fence between us and the Kruger National Park. This here is not the Kruger National Park itself. This is a very high-end safari lodge called Timbervati, but Timbervati has no fence border with the Kruger Park. The land is just continuous with the Kruger Park. So up to this fence, you can get elephants, buffaloes, rhinos, whatever else, and on occasion the elephants come through the fence. So 3 years ago, there was a very severe drought, and the elephants basically worked out that there was stuff in Wits rural facility that there wasn't on the other side of the fence, so they were coming through the fence and doing elephant stuff, which is basically pooing everywhere and smashing things, which was a bit of a worry because we didn't want any students being stomped. Or, you know, there's a lot of paperwork involved with that. But anyway, so that's what the field station's like, and again, you can see the difference in land use as you cross the road there. What do we do on the field course? One thing we do is we have lots of lectures, obviously, because we go to Africa to sit in a room and look at slides. But we have a sort of formal talk component, and we have lectures on subjects like savanna ecology, talks on conservation, and so on. We usually, well, every year so far we've managed to get a guest speaker in from South African national parks. So there's a guy called Sam Ferreira who's the chief ecologist for South African national parks, and he comes in for a day and gives us a day's worth of lectures on basically on practical animal management in the Kruger Park, which is usually very entertaining and very eye-opening for a lot of people. One thing he talks about quite a lot is rhino poaching. So where we're going is basically ground zero for the rhino wars at the moment. A few years ago, while we were there were 4 rhinos poached out along the road that this rural is on. There are armed guards checking vehicles as you drive to the nearest airport. So there's quite a lot going on there at the moment. If any of you saw about 10 months ago, there was a group of poachers eaten by lions in South Africa. That was about 15 k's from where we go. So it's pretty much, as I say, ground zero for the rhino poaching. So we have a bunch of lectures, and then we also do stuff in the field. We do biodiversity surveys of the mammals and usually the birds, using a variety of techniques. We've got about 28 camera traps that we take out with us. So we do a big camera trap survey of the mammals. We do bird surveys. Professor Leach teaches people about savanna vegetation, which is really important to understand if you want to understand how the savanna works. I usually do a bit on parasites, which usually means that everyone starts avoiding the monkeys rather than going near them. And then at the end of the field course, we have a 3-day small group project, which can involve a whole bunch of things, including animal behaviour studies, more bird surveys, vegetation work, you name it. We've had all sorts of things happening. And we also have a 2-day trip to the Kruger Park. We'll stay overnight in the Kruger Park at one of the rest camps on the grounds that if you're going to somewhere that's 50 k's from the Kruger Park, you might as well. And we also pay a visit to a place called Blader River Canyon, which is it's a canyon, and there's a river that runs through it called the Blader River, but it's got some very unique vegetation, and you can drive up to it. So you go from what's called the low felt up onto the high felt. So the canyon starts at about 1,600 meters elevation. We're at about 500 meters elevation at the bottom of the canyon. So you can get up to the top and you can see how the vegetation changes. And there's some quite cool vegetation right on the edge of the escarpment as well. So we go to Blader River Canyon. Couple of things to make very clear. There are some health issues that you'll need to think about. It is an endemic malaria area, although at the time of year we go there, there's a pretty low risk of malaria because we go there in very early spring, and it's an area where it only rains in the summer. So usually when we go there, it's been dry for 3 or 4 months, apart from 3 years ago when it had been dry for 18 months. So it's usually very dry when we're there, and I don't personally get bitten by many mosquitoes, and what I do is I just stand next to Dave Hone, and they all bite him, and then that's fine. But there are some, malaria is the main thing to think about in terms of health issues. If any of you have health issues that might affect your ability to work in the field, and I'm including psychiatric issues there as well, then the thing to do is come and talk to us. We are very keen to be as accommodating as we can be, and we've had people with some quite significant health issues come in the past with no problem. But if there is something that you're not sure about, just come and talk to us, and we'll have a think about it. Safety is very important. As I've said, there's a whole bunch of lethal venomous snakes. There's also all kinds of other animals there that could mess you up, and obviously South Africa doesn't have the world's greatest record in terms of personal safety. So we'll be quite concerned about safety, and anyone who thinks they're coming to have a party or act like a dick will very rapidly be disabused of this unfortunate nation. We've only had a couple of incidents of people not behaving like grown-ups, and almost all of the people we've taken have been really sensible and a real pleasure to work with. But just in case, it's worth saying now. Numbers are limited. Judging by the survey I sent out, we probably won't have a problem with numbers this year, but it's difficult for us to fit in any more than about 30 people. If we do have more than 30 people going, we'll scratch our heads and try and make a plan. But we might have to put a cap on numbers. And I've mentioned the bursaries already. And I'm just going to finish off with a few photos to show you what it looks like. So that is the field station. That is an animal, and so is that. I took that photo with my phone, which should give you an idea of how close I was to the giraffe.
I thought you were photographing that fine shrub there.
Actually, Andrew, I'm a fan of African water towers. I just like this picture because Dave looks so great. So that's giving a lecture. This is Dave again, photobombing a bunch of otherwise happy students. This is Blader River Canyon behind them there. This is a leopard. One of our students took this photo in the Kruger Park a few years ago. I cannot guarantee that you will see a leopard. I can guarantee that you will see elephants. And I would be very surprised if you don't see lions. We see leopards about every other year, maybe. Yeah, but that one was very, very close to the vehicle. That's the road outside Fitzroy, just to give you an idea of what the general area looks like. That's a couple of cheetahs. I took that photo in the Kruger Park. I have to admit I did take it with a very long lens, but nonetheless they are identifiable cheetahs. That's a lion. I took this photo about 15 metres from the field station. Yeah. This snake is a baby boomslang. So this is quite a dangerous snake. We didn't know it was a baby boomslang at the time, and the local guide had told us it was a different snake. But I found out afterwards. Adult boomslang look very different from that. These are some parasite eggs that I extracted from monkey, or that's a parasite egg. That's a Strongyloides egg that I extracted from some monkey poo. That's a bee eater. That's a ground hornbill. These are pretty rare, pretty spectacular birds, and we're quite likely to see them in the Kruger Park. The bit of the Kruger Park that's nearest to us is a particularly good place to see these. And that's from a couple of years ago. That's Lauren Pollitt, who's doing the Ecology Masters at the moment, and again you can see how close she is to that giraffe. Don't get any ideas that you're going to be hugging giraffes or anything like that. But that's not an unusual sort of encounter on the field station. She was meant to be putting plasticine caterpillars in trees to look at bird predation rates and what can I say? Anyway, so that's that. What I suggest we do is we Skype straight through to Dave, and he can then talk about the Canada field course, and then if you've got any questions, you can ask them, if that's okay. So let me see if I can find
Hello.
Oh, it's really loud. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm trying to turn the volume down. It doesn't seem to like it.
Okay.
Can you say something? He's frozen. Reconnecting. Your connection is poor. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, come on.
Yeah, hello, tag team.
It's still really loud here. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, that's probably a bit better.
Okay. Let
me just.
Trying to find the share screen button. Here we go. Screen. Seeing. are you seeing, Rob?
I'm seeing your slides, but not full
Right.
screen, and one of the projectors here has just crashed.
Okay.
But you know, we've got you on one screen, and we can hear you. So
Okay, that's the main thing.
we can hear you very loudly.
Okay, can you turn it? Can you turn it round so I can see people? Because I can just see your chin. Most exciting thing. Hello. Right, I can actually see it. So after Rob's 10-minute talk that he was giving, which has taken 25 minutes, I'll talk about the Canada trip that's obviously lined up for this year for August in 2019, and this is for the Dinosaur Dna Module. So it's third year module, obviously. It's about dinosaurs, and we use them as the kind of primary model for what we're teaching, but it is a module about taxonomy, species concepts, relationships, how we use that and why it's important in biology. Unlike South Africa, we also have 10 lectures in semester A, so we have the field course in summer, and then when you come back there'll be a bunch of lectures by me and Beth Clare. It's 100% coursework, and of course the key feature is a field trip to Dinosaur Provincial Park in Alberta. So the field trip is potentially limited. That's because unlike South Africa, there's actually literally physical space limitations. What we effectively are doing is renting the available bed space used by the Royal Tyrrell Museum in the park, and they get first dibs on it. And so there is the potential that we can't always hire as much space as we want. I believe we've maxed them out this year, but if the museum turns around and says, sorry, we really need some of that space, then that number has to come down because we can't physically fit people in. We will make every effort to get everyone in, though. There are potentially some other options we've never had to use, and for example, there's a local hotel which is like half an hour away. We could potentially put people in there at a push. The cost of this, same as South Africa, so you'll need to pay your own flight out there, and then we expect a £150 contribution, and as Rob has probably told you, there are bursaries potentially available for some of you as well. We are provisionally booked in for the 21st to the 29th of August, again to be confirmed. The 29th is the date we would leave. Almost all flights to the UK would leave on the 29th and get back the next day, so actually we wouldn't be back in London until the 30th. But that is it. And we depart and return to Calgary Airport. So that means that if, for example, you want to go to the States or to other bits of Canada before or after, you're more than welcome to. But the only kind of guarantee we'll give you is that we'll pick you up from the airport and we'll drop you off at the airport. Everything else is up to you. And this year we're probably going to be accompanied by some students from the University of Southern California. So a good friend of mine, Mike Habib, has come out with us every year that we've run this trip. He's down at USC, and this year last year he brought a couple of students with him as a kind of a pilot, and this year he's probably going to bring half a dozen students with him. That won't impinge on our numbers above. Mike has agreed that we have first priority because we've been running this before. So if not everyone wants to go, there's enough room for him to bring some students. So accommodation, it's really quite nice. They spent quite a lot of money building some basic bungalows. They have proper beds, they have proper showers, they have proper washing facilities, we have aircon and heating in the rooms, etc. We'll provide all the food. Basically, if you can get yourself to Calgary Airport, you don't need to spend any money beyond what you want to spend in the shop buying yourself a Coke or what you want to spend in the museum gift shop. We'll cover absolutely everything, but we will expect you to be able to pitch in with cooking, cleaning, and all of that stuff. So arrive on the first day. It's a fair drive. There's lots of driving. Everything's miles from everywhere. It's Canada. It's Canada prairies. So we'll arrive at Calgary Airport. We'll then drive to the site. The first day we'll go to the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. So the next day. The day after that, we'll try and arrange a tour of Dinosaur Provincial Park to go to all of the main sites and all of the main dig sites. We'll then have 3 full days of field work. It's always weather permitting. Unfortunately, we've had snow even in the last week of August. It's Canada. If we have rainstorms, everything is very, very muddy. It's this horrible, nasty stuff that glues to your feet and you can't walk 5 feet without falling over. That's obviously very dangerous. We do have alternate stuff available, but everything is contingent on what's going on, basically. We then do another trip to the Tyrrell Museum at the end, so you can go back and basically then use that as to build on your knowledge that you've now picked up in the field and check everything. And then the last day we go back to Calgary Airport and everyone gets their flights out. So here's what the accommodation looks like. So they're twin rooms. As you see, you actually get a proper bed and there's towels and shampoo provided. And then there's a cabin of 10, so there'll be 5 twin rooms, 2 bathrooms, and then this little living space with a few couches. And there's the kitchen as modelled by Andy. So you can see we've actually got a fridge and a freezer and a microwave and a dishwasher in each cabin. It's really pretty good as field sites go. And so the museum itself, the Tyrrell, is one of the largest and most important dinosaur museums in the world. It is based around their dinosaur collection. That makes up about 80% of what's in the museum. It's dinosaurs, dinosaurs, dinosaurs. They have 50 plus mounted skeletons. The Natural History Museum has like 10. This is a huge collection, and many of them are originals, not cast or copies. And also on the second trip, we get a behind-the-scenes tour, so we get to go into the collections rooms, we get to go into the prep labs, and see lots of cool stuff like that. So here's a couple of shots from the museum. They have 3 or 4 life-size tyrannosaurs. They have 5 different tyrannosaur skeletons out, I think, last time we were there. Stuff's changing all the time. Huge collections of skulls. This, I think, is arguably the best dinosaur skeleton in the world. It's on display. It's amazing. It's a complete tyrannosaur, whole ceratopsians. And then here in the collections, you see racks and racks and racks of material that we're able to have a run around and to look at. More skeletons, more life reconstructions, more people going through the collections. And then the park itself is one of the most productive sites for dinosaur fossils in the world. You will find dinosaurs. The first year we ran this, a senior member of staff in organismal biology, who I will not name, said, "I don't know why you're doing this, no one will find anything." And Beth Clare, the day before the students arrived, went early and found a tyrannosaur tooth in the car park. It's impossible not to find stuff. In an area the size of the room you're in at the moment, you will find 3 or 4 bones. You can't not find stuff as long as you're looking at the ground. Now they will mostly be fragments and bits, but they are there in huge numbers. I don't want to give people the impression that we're going to walk around and stumble over skeletons constantly. That's not the case. But you will find huge numbers of teeth, bones, little bits, and then occasionally whole chunks of important stuff. We're accompanied by staff from the museum when we go out there. I think every year we've collected at least 15 pieces between us, which the museum has considered worth taking back. And bear in mind, people have been collecting there for 150 years, and the museum has been there for 35 years. And we're still finding stuff that they consider valuable enough. And they're sending a dozen teams out for 6 months of the year, every year. So this is just how good the stuff is and just how well we do. We're not allowed to take them away. You may have seen some dinosaur stuff that's actually in the foyer. That's on display in the Fog building. This is stuff that we have on loan from them. That is stuff that students have found in previous years, and we have permanent loan arrangement with the Tyrrell, so we can take a few things, but you will not get to keep them. Just to make that very, very clear. It's massively illegal, and if they caught stealing any stuff, we'd be shut down and never get to go back again. So you'd be in huge trouble. Don't do it. But the major exercise, of course, this is a taxonomy module, is for you to find this stuff and then try and work out what it is and why you would know that it is what it is. In other words, the basic principles of field taxonomy. And so this is what it looks like. It's these wonderful badlands. All of this kind of stuff with all of these riffles is mudstone. That is fossiliferous beds. So you can see this is, 50, 60 meters high, and this extends for an area, about the size of London. And every square cubic foot of that, cubic meter of that, has fossils in, pretty much. So yeah, all of this stuff is fossiliferous. This is all the park. This is us from last year and 2 years ago. Last year on the left, 2 years ago on the right. Again, just go down into these beds and just start looking around at any of these flat platforms. Basically, stuff is eroding out the hills and it tends to end up on the platform, and we can pick it up. We do very well. So here's a couple of tyrannosaur teeth. That was from a morning where we found, I think, 6 teeth in about an hour, which is very good. And this is what looks like a bit of broken hadrosaur bone, which it is, but it's also got some tyrannosaur tooth marks running down the side of it, so that's a nice find. And then there is some bigger bits. So I don't know if you can see my arrow moving on the screen, but here is what looks like a forelimb bone, and then here is a chain of vertebrae. So there is actually a partial skeleton down here, which is quite nice. And then here's a giant hadrosaur femur. Here's our staff from the Tyrrell on the right who come out with us every year. And they also have a little research lab on site where we can go and do some comparative stuff in the evening, which is nice, maybe even a little bit of prep. It's worth also saying that the days are often long and hot. We're often going out at 8 in the morning and coming back at 5. And that's it. You're carrying your food, you're carrying your water, we've got field gear you'll need to take. There is no shade anywhere. It can rain horribly. There can be absolute clouds of mosquitoes. And no matter what we tell people, someone doesn't take enough water and get sunstroke every year. It's really, really, really good fun. It is also hard work. You're climbing up and down hills all the time. And again, we'll expect you to pitch in with the chores. But that's about it. As I say, I think it's extremely fun, extremely rewarding. We have some of the best module scores for this module every year, and well, you get to go out and dig for dinosaurs in a way that people are not normally allowed to. It's a pretty unique experience that is not usually open to the public, or at least not without a colossal amount of time and expense. And we get to go to places that basically no one else can go to in the park as well, because we've got the Tyrrell guys with us. So that's it. Rob, if you want to...
Yeah, I'll return you to... If you could just turn off the screen sharing, then...
That's what I'm going to try and do.
You should appear full screen.
Yeah.
No, that's my t-shirt. Oh, the giant head of Dave projected onto the screen. So the thing we haven't talked about is how you go about registering an interest for these field courses. We will be sending out an email in the near future. There'll be an online sign-up form. If we don't have any problems with numbers or anything like that, we'll then just go straight on to, okay, you've got a place. At that point, you then have to pay the £150. And once you've paid that, your place is then secured. So we'll hopefully have all that wrapped up by about the end of March. But you do need to actually read the emails that we send and fill in the form online. That always helps. I would just like to say I went the first year on the Canada field course, and Dinosaur Provincial Park is a place like nowhere in Europe, and probably nowhere in Africa either, because I've seen a lot of Africa and there's nothing like that. And it's just extraordinary. And as Dave says, the field course goes to bits of it that the public can't even get to. It's an amazing place. Right, any questions either for me or for Sally or for Andrew or for our students who so far haven't done anything apart from sit there and smile? Yep.
Are there any visa requirements for either trip?
For Canada, if you're coming from who knows? Who knows? I can tell you the current situation, which is that if you're on a UK passport going to South Africa, there's no problem. If you're on a UK passport going to Canada, you have to fill in an online form and pay £12.
Like $7.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. You have to do that before you go. If you're not on a UK passport, then it's really up to you to make sure that you have a visa. 3 years ago, we had someone who, it was a long and complicated story, but anyway, she ended up 4 days before the field course with no visa to go to South Africa, and she couldn't get a visa and she didn't go. It was really, really bad. The South African embassy, most embassies have a thing where you can just go there and give them a huge pile of money and they'll process your visa really fast. The South African embassy doesn't do that. So if you might need to get a visa, then I would recommend checking as soon as possible. And obviously, who knows what's going to happen after March the 29th? Any more? Yeah?
James Hone and yourself said that all the sign up and things like that say wrapped up by March, as in like we would already know by March?
By the end of by the end of March, I think you would have got an email saying, please now pay your 150 quid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how would bursaries work out in terms of paying back?
What we do is, if you get a bursary, we pay you the 150 quid back at the end of the field course.
Okay.
It's logistically a lot easier for us with that. If you get a full bursary, we will buy you a flight. And if you get a half bursary, we ask you to pay for the flight, and then we'll reimburse you half of it within sensible limits. So if you get a first class ticket on BA, you won't get half of that. Yeah?
Just to chip in, the point of that is obviously we've never had it, but what we don't want is to give someone a full bursary, buy them a flight, and then they go, oh, I've changed my mind, I don't want to come. And now we've got a flight in someone else's name that we spent £1,000 on that we can't spend, that we can't use, and that's really bad. So we want to see some commitment, which is why we ask for the deposit.
Yeah. Just to make it clear, we sometimes call it a deposit. It's not. It's the fee.
Yeah.
You don't get it back.
We ask for the fee up front.
Yeah.
You said obviously the dates are still like to be confirmed. Would you recommend we then don't book anything until the end of March?
Yes, and also I'll have things to say about times for flights for South Africa. It went well. With the looming Brexit, maybe we should try and get it done before that. Who knows? We'll see what we can do. But in past years, it doesn't make a difference if you book it in March or May. It's only in the sort of month beforehand that the prices start doing that. But yeah, I would, so those dates are fairly certain for South Africa, a little bit more provisional for Canada.
Well, I think the dates currently are fairly set for Canada, but again, it's, if the Tyrrell come back and say we want 4 of our rooms for the 21st, then obviously shunting it back a day means we can take more people. So, those dates are pretty certain, but if you're planning booking your summer holidays now, you advise to give yourself 3 or 4 days either side of that, just to make sure. And as Rob was just saying about the flight, don't book anything until we've told you, and even then check what we actually tell you. Every year without fail, either South Africa or Canada, students get a flight which we've specifically told them not to get. So we say for example, the coach will be leaving at midday. Therefore, you should not arrive any later than 10 a.m. because obviously you've got, the flight's probably going to be a bit late, then you've got to get off the plane, get through security, etc. And then someone sends us their flight, says, my flight lands at 11:30 in the morning. And it's like, oh, good. So everyone else is now waiting 2.5 hours for you. Thanks. Yeah. So don't do it, because that means everyone hates you before you even arrive.
Yes, sorry.
You said that the Canada trip was 100% coursework. What's the...
Oh yeah, South Africa trip's 100% coursework as well. Yeah, they're both.
Yeah, but both of them heavily feature with a field notebook and you giving a short talk. And then for South Africa, there's some project write-ups, and for Canada, there's a couple of essays which you do when you get back.
Yeah. Any more?
What's the safety like on the South African site where we stay?
Very good, actually. That's a very good question. The actual field station has a game fence around it, which is a big electrified fence. 2 years ago, there was a poacher court on site. That's the only security thing that's happened. If you were to go, one of the things that worries me is the bit on the other side of the road, the town there, Acorn Hook. That's a really poor town, like really, really poor. It's got a very high violent crime rate. If anyone decided they were going to go and have a lekker time in a shebeen and sneaked off site at night and went and got drunk in Acorn Hook at night, we'd probably be finding bits of them in a ditch the next morning. Which is one of the reasons I'm very strict about security. But aside from that, the roads are probably the most dangerous thing, and we stay off the roads. So up until now, touch wood, we've not had any security issues at all on the field station. And when we're in the Kruger Park, it's really safe, apart from getting vehicles turned over by elephants, but so far we've avoided that.
Or baboons jumping into the car.
I fended the baboon off with my camera heroically.
As far as I'm aware, you need to take both ecologies, like both ecological interactions 1 and 2 for
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm aware, that's not the case for Canada, right?
Is that right? Are there prerequisites
Yeah,
for Canada?
there's no real prerequisites for Canada because it's a taxonomy module, and other than the tiny bit that I give you in animal and plant diversity, there's no real kind of module that we have which directly feeds into it. So yeah, you're fine. Rob, is it worth asking our students to say a few brief words
You wanna
about
say
it?
something?
We've had along.
You guys want to say something about the field courses?
Yeah, I think Canada, like, don't just think dinosaurs, because it's not just dinosaurs. Like, it's really cool park. Park is absolutely incredible, but like the whole module isn't just Dave talking about dinosaurs.
Some of it's Dave talking about pterosaurs.
So like, don't think that. It is a really incredible module. South Africa as well. I'd also say, like, go and travel. Like, if you can. We went to Cape Town on our way to Joburg, and it was £200 extra for flights, accommodation, and 5 days. Like, if you're going out there, you might as well see some stuff.
Yeah. So the field course ends on the Friday, and you need to be in lectures on the Monday for South Africa. But you can come out early and do whatever you like.
There's about a week and a half in between the two.
Yeah, we've had people in the past come out and do sort of volunteering on game farms and things like that, and then turn up for the field course. If you're already in South Africa, you can either make your own way to the field station, or there's a small airport nearby called Hoedspruit. And if you fly into Hoedspruit, we can easily pick you up from there. Hoedspruit's my favourite airport in the world because I was flying out of there a couple of years ago and the flight was delayed because there were baboons on the runway. It's like, okay, you can delay my flight for that.
I think if you get the opportunity, I'd do both. Like, it's quite expensive and it is a lot of work, but you then only have like 4 exams next year and it saves a lot and it's definitely worth it. I think both courses.
4 exams is pretty nice.
Yeah, compared to 8 last year, so.
Yes, although please don't only decide you want to go because it'll cut your number of exams. You know, I mean.
You could, Holly, say how good the field course is.
I said
So why are you skipping an exam?
Yeah, if you don't say that, Holly, I won't give you the money I promised you.
No, I think it's definitely worth it. They were great field trips and definitely the best memories of the university so far on my field trips. So.
Yeah, I think as well that being able to interact with the academics in the way that you get to on field trips is so different from being in a lecture theatre with 100 other students or in a lab or something like that. Because like just being able to like talk one-on-one, you know, in small groups with these people is so much of a learning opportunity, and it's so different to anything that you ever get to experience on site, really.
I think most of the sort of one-on-one conversations I have with students on the field course are, right, now this is a nice Cabernet Sauvignon, but this is a Pinotage, but they're great. They really only grow in South Africa, so you really should have some of that. Was that Jamie?
That's
Yes.
always Jamie.
I think also just to keep in mind if you go on the trips to make the most of everything, like don't just hide in your room the entire time as soon as the work's over. Like in South Africa we had a really nice opportunity to talk to some people who, I think they were medics studying from the university. It was really nice to meet people we wouldn't have met normally, and it's just loads of good experiences you get if you put yourself into it.
Yeah, same with Canada. You meet people from the University of Southern California, which is quite cool, and you meet all the professors there. And
Mike.
Yeah,
Mike is really good.
Yeah, building on what Judy said, there is definitely a good balance between like work and not necessarily relaxation, but kind of time to do your own work and to kind of, yeah, it's not completely lectures 24/7.
Yeah.
So.
If any of you got PTSD from the Millport film, of course,
Yeah.
we don't
doesn't compare.
we don't have as much work as we don't have anything near as much work as they do at Millport. Yeah.
I think Canada cost me 600 or 700 return, but I went out a few days before, and South Africa was about 500, 600. So it's like 1,200.
Yeah, and certainly for South Africa, you really can get by with 20 quid, literally. I mean, if you want to spend money, you can. But you know, we provide all the transport, all the food, all the accommodation. As I say, you probably want to buy a pizza in the Kruger Park because they do quite good pizza. But aside from that, there's very little to spend your money on. There are opportunities to buy ethnic tat, which obviously.
Rob loves that.
Yeah.
No, my wife loves it. My house is full of crap. Wobbly wooden giraffes and things like that. Any more for any more? Okay, while we're here, can we just have a quick show of hands so that I get an idea of numbers again? So who's thinking of going to South Africa? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, there's about 20 for South Africa, which would be a great number, actually. And how many people think about going to Canada? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So about the same for both. That's great news for Canada because the principal has decreed that from now on we aren't allowed to run modules with fewer than 15 students. And we're really worried we might have to cancel Canada because of that. So it's good there's a good number of people wanting to go. Okay, unless anyone's got any more questions, I can release you. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you all very much.